I'm Don Dickson, and I want to thank you for joining me again today. We're wrapping up our discussion on the basic movements of fish. And as you can see here behind me, it's a pretty dreary morning. On top of that, it's supposed to rain all week long. And I was anxious to get this particular vlog done as we wrap up our discussion on basic movements. And in addition to the bad weather, I've got a touch of what my daddy used to call the rockin' pneumonia and the boogie woogie blues. So I'm not feeling so well, but at the same time, I'm going to try to knock this one out today so we can wrap up our discussion on basic movements. Let me review for just a minute sort of what we've established already in our past few discussions. We've established that fish spend most all of their time someplace in deep water, certainly in the deepest water in the area of a lake that you're fishing. Now, I don't care if you're fishing a reservoir, a natural lake, a river. I don't much care what the body of water is. We know that wherever you're fishing, the home of the fish in that area is deep water. Now, we also brought out that when fish are in these deep water sanctuary zones, they're very dormant and non-chasing. And in many cases, they're just absolutely impossible to catch. But we also pointed out we're saved due to the fact they don't stay there all the time. Once or twice on a normal fishing day, these fish will become active and move from their deep water sanctuary, migrate towards the shallows. And we're saved again due to the fact that this movement or this migration is not in a haphazard fashion, but it's along well-defined routes. Routes which the fish can see, and we can see as well. These features are referred to as structure. Now, how far these fish move and how long they stay will be completely dependent upon the weather and the water conditions. And that's something that we're going to be doing in further study just in a week or so. We're going to be getting into the weather and water conditions. Now, for those of you who were with me a few months ago, we did a complete study on structure. If you weren't with us a few months ago, I want you to look back and review some of those masterclass studies on structure. There are literally 17 different types of structure. And we not only identified them, but we talked about how we fish them and so on and so forth. So if you weren't with me then, go back and take a look at those videos. And if you were with me, you should probably go back and review them a little bit. But when we leave this study today on basic movements, our next little discussion will be on structure. But since we've done that prior work, I'm not going to rehash it all. I'll review it a little bit with you, but I want to get into more detail on the breaks and the break lines that are on and connected to structure and how it affects how we are going to fish a certain area. So that'll be the next study. But before we leave this basic movement discussion, I want to clear something up on this deep water sanctuary zone. I've been getting a lot of emails, a lot of questions being sent to me with, at least it's pointing out to me that there's a little misunderstanding about this sanctuary zone. So I thought we'd take the rest of the day and just clear this up once and for all, because it's really the most important part of our overall discussion on basic movements. Where the fish live, where do they spend most of the time, and when they leave that spot, where are they most likely to be found. And everything always in successful structure fishing always comes back to this deep water identification. Where are my fish? When I look out on this lake or any other lake, I have to identify the areas where the fish are and then go do some detail work to know how to fish those areas. So it's important that you really understand when we say deep water is a home of the fish, the sanctuary will be in the deepest water in the lake, the deepest water in the area of a lake, or the deepest water available. Here's where the misunderstanding has come. So let's clear it up. And in order to clear it up, I'm going to be using some drawings here and some figures that's going to help me, I hope, help you get a total understanding of this sanctuary zone. It's critically important that you understand it. Let's first start with this, the deepest water in the lake, home of the fish. I'm showing you a drawing right here where we're showing a side view of a lake. Could be your lake, it's a reservoir. I don't care where it is, what the name of it is. But we're just going to say for now that this is in fact the deepest water in the lake. It shows 100 feet. But as you can see, where I have those fish sitting is at about 30 or 34, 35 feet of water. I hope you recall, I said the average sanctuary zone for largemouth bass, bulk of the season, under normal weather and water conditions will be somewhere between 30 and 35 feet. We never know exactly where, but that's our best guesstimate, and we're never going to be too far wrong. It could be 30 feet, it could be 32 feet, it could be 36 feet, but the good average that you always have in your mind, 30 to 35 feet. Another reason that depth becomes very important, and you'll understand more in our discussion on weather and water. But most all light is gone by the time you reach that 30 to 35 feet. Now you remember when we started trying to establish the sanctuary zone. Why did Buck call it the sanctuary zone? Because the only true sanctuary or escape that fish have from all of the changing environments, the water pressure, the air pressure, temperature, pH, oxygen, light, all of these components of the fish's environment are constantly changing. And since the fish can't change quickly and adapt to it quickly, his only escape is to drop deep. The deeper he goes, the quieter all of those changes become, and the more stable the condition. It's his sanctuary. It's his safety. Deep water, sanctuary zone. Now, when we say it will always be in the deepest water in the lake, there'll be school fish. However, that doesn't mean they're living at 100 feet of water. Average sanctuary zone, 30, 35 feet. In the winter months, their winter position would be around 60 feet. Still not in that 100 foot. But Buck used to say, the deepest water in the lake will hold the most and the biggest fish. And the way he said it to me was, the more water that the fish has underneath of that 30 to 35 feet normal sanctuary, the more water he has underneath him, the better he likes it, the better we like it. That's just the way it is. So when we say the home of the fish, the deepest water in the lake, it's the first thing we say, deepest water in the lake. They're in the deepest water in the lake, but they're at a position of 30 to 35 feet. Normal weather and water conditions. Now on a cold frontal condition, and we're going to get into the weather and water, how fish are affected, but one of the worst things in the world for a fish is a cold front. And normally when a cold front goes through, those fish will drop away from that 30, 35 feet, and they'll drop to a depth of approximately 60 feet if that much water is available. That's probably another thing I ought to bring up right here. Most people, most bass fishermen, when I say under certain weather and water conditions, that school of big bass is at 60 feet of water, they look at me like I've absolutely lost my mind. 60 feet? What in the world are you talking about? Who ever even gave any thought to something like that? Well, when I first heard it, I started thinking about it the same way. That's just crazy, 60 feet. It seems like it's 1.5 miles or something. But let's actually take a look at that. 60 feet up and down vertical. Let's turn that at a different angle, and it's known as the red zone. It's 20 yards. You ever been on a football field? I have. 20 yards is nothing. For boom, boom. That's what it is. Under the worst conditions, that's where that bass is. It's not that deep. It's a red zone. And for the fish, it's a safety zone under the worst weather. That's where they're dropping to, where they get some sanctuary from the environment. Mainly light, something we're going to talk about later. At any rate, so we know that the deepest water in the lake holds big school of fish, or 2 or 3. However, they're not always positioned in that deepest water. Most people have been writing me talking about, well, their lake's 120 feet, or the fish in 120 feet of water. No, but they're in direct access to that 120 feet, even though their normal sanctuary is 30, 35 feet, but right at that deepest water in the lake. Now, as weather or seasons change, they can drop deeper, and many times they will drop deeper than that. So the more water we have under the fish, the better we like them. So we clear up that deepest water in the lake. No, they're not living down there 100 feet. They're 30, 35 feet, but they're at that area. They're just positioned in that area at 30, 35 feet. Now, let's move on to the deepest water in the area of a lake. So to help you understand this, we have another drawing here of a lake that has 3 deep water holes. Now this is typical of most natural lakes. You have multiple deep water holes. Depending on the size of the lake, you could have 3 major holes, as this drawing has, or you could have 13 different deep water sections in a lake, depending on the size of the lake. So in this particular figure, we have one deep hole at 50 feet, we have another one at 40 feet, then we have the deepest water in the lake over here in the northeast corner, and we've outlined a little bar coming out and dropping into that 40-foot deep water hole. Now, if you're fishing that bar and you catch a fish, he came from that 40-foot hole. It's the deepest water in the area of that lake, separated by flats and other, depths and so on and so forth. But that fish that you just caught off of that bar that came out of that 40-foot hole, he doesn't know that 65-foot hole exists. He doesn't know that that 50-foot hole exists down in the southeast corner of the lake. He had no idea. He's living in the deepest water in that area of that lake. Now, in this case, the fish that are living over there in that 65-foot hole, they have no idea that bar exists over there in the northwest corner of this lake. They have no idea about it. They have no way to get there. They don't know about it. So I hope you're getting the idea of this now. In the 65-foot hole, there are schools of fish. It's the deepest water in the lake. And they're going to be using a structure that's connected to that hole. Just like the fish in the southern part of that lake in the 50-foot hole, they're using a structure that's connected to that hole. So as you start thinking in terms of the deepest water in an area of a lake, think of it this way. It's like you have separate fishing lakes. One, in this particular drawing, one is in that around that 40-foot hole in that bar. In the deepest water of the lake, we're not showing any structure in this case, 65-foot hole, but we would do all the mapping and find out where those fish are moving. Same as we would in the southern part of the lake. We want to catch fish in all 3 of those spots, but this lake fishing 3 different lakes. Completely different structures. These fish are using different structures. And they're originating from the deepest water in the lake, in the one case, and in the other 2 cases, in the southern part of the lake, in the northwestern part of the lake, it's the deepest water in the area. But in the case of the 65-foot hole, think about it this way. It's the deepest water in the lake, but it's also the deepest water in the area of that lake. So it's 2 of those things. Actually, it's 3 things. It's also the deepest water available. You see how this can all come together now, but you got to get it straight in your mind. I want to fish all the structure and connected to all of those deep water holes. This brings something else up right now. Everybody's talking now, and I am too, about the modern technology, how we've come to a place where I can pick up my iPad, punch in a couple of little numbers, and pull up a contour map of any lake in the United States and or Canada, my fingertips. I could be sitting in my easy chair doing all my mapping for my upcoming fishing trip, never leaving my easy chair in my living room. Man, it's really come to a place where it's so much easier for us now. But let me point this out to you. You have to really know how to read a contour map. You have to know what it is you're looking for. It does you no good to have that technology to show you that entire lake if you don't know how to interpret it. Where are my fish? Where's the home of the fish? Deepest water in the lake, deepest water in the area of the lake, deepest water available in some cases, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But to take advantage of today's technology, you must have this basic knowledge first. Deep water, structure, all of the things that we talk about. If you want to be a modern day educated structure fisherman, you got to put all that knowledge up here, and then when you pull up through your technology, you pull up that map of this lake you're going to go visit this summer. You can have all your mapping done before you get there. You know exactly where to go, exactly what you're looking for, how to get there, how to recognize it, and more importantly then, how to fish it. It's really not that hard today. This technology is great, but you got to know what to do with it. You have to know how to read it. And this is the information that we're talking about. The things that Buck Perry discovered about the habits of a fish. What he'll do, what he won't do, how he moves about, where's he spend most of his time, and bottom features, all of the things that Buck discovered. Once you have all that knowledge and you put it together with today's technology, making a trolling pass or making a cast, that's the easy part. You be catching fish.